Stylists, what's a UFO screw and how do you set the tension? Let's look at this one. It's important that you have the right tool. That's the key to setting the correct tension on the UFO screw. Sometimes called the tamper resistant screw, has a number of different names, but UFO is the easiest to remember. So let's talk about how to correctly adjust this screw. The most mystifying of all the pivot screws on shears is the notorious UFO screw. If you have one of these types of shears and you need to adjust the pivot, you better have the tool. You might be able to use needle-nosed pliers, you might be able to use tweezers, you might be able to go to the hardware store and get something called a spanner bit. But in general, you need the tool that came from the manufacturer for your shears, because these come in a variety of styles, and if you can't adjust your screw on your shears, you've got a problem. So let's look at the different types of UFO screws and see if that is what is on your shears. So if your shears have 2 slots, sometimes it's 4 slots, but it's not like a Phillips head, it's not like a regular screw, it's not a thumb nut screw, but it has slots to put a tool in. This is what we call a UFO screw. And the size of the slots, the space between them will vary from one shear to the other. So one tool does not fit all. The most common tools you'll see, and very often you should get these that'll fit your shears when you purchase your shears. Some will have just like one little tool, some will have several, some might have 2. One of these will not fit every UFO shear. This is the most universal style if you've got this one. You can usually go back and buy them from your shear manufacturer. We sell these different styles on our website, but this should have been given to you when you bought your shears. If you didn't get the tool, you need to ask for it. Now, the way to adjust these is you find the ones that fit in the slots. And on this one, here it is. And, no, I think that one fits better. And you should hear it click, because most of them have what we call an internal clicker plate. The Jaguar shears that have this type of screw have a very special tool for them, and they won't click. They have a different type of mechanism inside. In general, most of your shears that have this type of screw that are coming from the Asian continent are going to have like a little clicker plate, we call it, inside, and you'll hear it click as you turn it. Now, why do you need to be able to adjust your screw? You're going to need to adjust your screw if it gets loose on you. Now, typically these screws have less problems with loosening up than the other types of screws on the market. So that's why you're seeing so many shears going to this. Also because they're flatter, they don't get caught in the hair, and they're harder for your customers to pick up and piddle with it and mess up your screw. Now this one, I've just loosened it up and it's too loose. Now you say, oh, what's looser? That means I don't have to work my hand as hard. That's not always so. Here's what's going to happen. If you cut with a screw that's loose, you see how it's folding the hair instead of cutting now. I can make it cut, but I have to do a crab grip and it's still not cutting at the tip. So if your screw is too loose, you're not going to get a good cut. You're going to have to work your hand harder. Plus, the blades are going to hit together wrong, and you're going to have your shears sharpened more often. It's going to damage your shears. They're not designed that way. What you want to do is find whatever tool fits in the slots in your shears and feel it click. When you think you have the right adjustment, open it all the way up. If you do this, the 2 blades will nick each other. You want to open it all the way up and wiggle. And this hand's doing this, this hand is doing that, and wiggle it. And if it falls down and loosens up too much, then you want to tighten it again. Now, the other way you can check to see if they're adjusted right is just kind of flick them with your thumb. And how do they feel? They should have the right amount of tension where you don't have to overwork your hand, but you don't have to do a crab grip to make the blades come together. So you can customize the tension of the pivot to your style of cutting and to your hand. You don't want to take this out to clean them. You don't want to take it out for any purposes, because there's all kinds of little pieces inside here that can get lost, that can break, that can go back in the wrong way. Leave that only to professional to take that screw out of your shears. Now, I want to show you a few other types of UFO screws you may come across. Some of these will have a decorative nut on the front. They're actually like a two-piece in here. And then on the back, you see the slots for the UFO. Sometimes the slots will be on the front of the shear. Sometimes they'll be on the back. This is a ball bearing screw, and you can see the little ball bearings in here. It'll have that instead of a washer. Not all the ones with a ball bearing screw will be visible like this one. I like this one because you can see the ball bearings. And then on the back, you've got the slots. So I hope that was helpful to you in knowing how to correctly adjust the pivot screw on your shears. My suggestion is at the end of the day, when you clean your shears and you oil them, double check your adjustment, and if you need to adjust it, go ahead. If you're having to adjust them all the time, that is probably a defect with your shears. It would be covered under most manufacturers. So go back to whoever you bought your shears from and tell them that you've got a loose screw, and say it with a straight face. So I hope that was helpful to you.